over this too when we get there. Yeah, I owed Western money after working. I will show you how that happened. Hello, you guys. So I can't believe I'm making this video finally for you guys. For all those who've asked about pay questions, like how much do I make? How much do I get paid per mile? Do I get it per diem? Do I get all these questions? I'm going to answer in this video for you today. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer, and this is my trucking adventures on this channel. And this video is a little different from what you guys normally see from me because I do vlog my trucking adventures. However, today I'm answering all those pay questions. But I want to get a few things out in the open before this pay video concludes itself. First off, this is not my only source of income. I do have some military benefits that I do receive at the first of the month. Second, nobody's pay in Western's the exact same. Everybody gets paid differently. It depends on whether you're over the road, regional, dedicated, whether you're a flatbed driver or you're driving. For me, I'm speaking for over the road flatbed drivers. I started out at 40 cents per mile and I am now making 58 cents per mile. And you will see that when we deep dive into my actual pay stubs from this past year. At one point, I worked for Western for a week and ended up owing them money. You will see how that happened as we deep dive. So one of the biggest questions I get asked about in my comment section of pretty much just about every video I make is about Western Express's pay. Now, when you go to their website, and everything I'm going to do on my screen you'll be able to see along with seeing my face. But when you go on Western Express's website here, the only thing you really see about pay, like when you click on these different things like this, you come in here, the only thing you can really find on their website about pay is just this little paragraph right here. I've kind of searched in different areas of their website and you really don't find much about pay. They don't really break it down for people. So one thing I'm going to do in this video is I really want to break down the pay. I'm going to be sharing pretty much the last 12 months of every check that I've gotten. I'm not going to spend too much time on every single one of them. I'm just going to kind of highlight a couple of the main ones, especially like if there's some issues or anything like that. I want to be able to break it down and show people how to do that. So first steps first, if you don't know how to read a Western Express pay stub, I'm going to briefly go over how to read one so that you can understand, and we'll go from there. Okay, this here is a pay stub. Actually, the very first one I ever got from Western Express. But in order to read it, you'll get an email and it'll have two documents in it. One will be your earnings statement, which is your pay stub. And then the second one, they call it an advance summary. So if you take out any advances or they send you an advance to buy equipment or whatever the case may be, you've got two documents. The first one here, your earnings statement. At the top, it's got Western Express's address right here and their information, and then right here it's got employee's name and your driver. It'll start with your driver code, and then your name, your personal information like your address, stuff like that. Over here explains the paid date. Now Western Express pays on Fridays. Every Friday you get a check as long as you were working. And it shows the pay period when it starts and when it ends. As long as you get your paperwork in by midnight on Saturday night at midnight, whatever paperwork you got in or load you got turned in, you will get those on your next Friday's check. Anything that comes in after midnight on Saturday will be on the following Friday's check. So I hope that makes sense. But continuing on with reading the statements here. Right here, you'll have a list of the description, so the load, like where it was from, where it was going. In this case, this was load securement training. You'll have your order and pay period, so that's just kind of going to the dates, like when the load was done and stuff like that. It'll have the taxable income and then your non-taxable income, given the per diem that they set for truck drivers at the beginning of the year. That's kind of a federal thing. The taxable plus your non-taxable income totals will be right here in this column. If you had a load with miles, it'll show the miles there. And then your cents per mile will be in this column right here on this side. When this section here, right here, will be your federal withholdings, like your Medicaid, whatever taxes they're taxing us that year and things like that will all be found in this section. Also, you'll have a section in here, which this was still within my first 30 days, so I didn't have it on there, but your medical benefits, as far as like health insurance, things like that, that'll all be in this area here, and you'll be able to see your totals from that. And then the most importantly, right here is the net pay amount. This is the amount that's actually deposited into your checking account or savings account or whatever. Wherever you have your check deposited, that's the amount that will be deposited. Now, as far as the payroll advance summaries, if you ever take out an advance, it will have that information here, the advance total, the fees involved, the ATMs, all that stuff. It will have all that explained in here. And I have taken out advances, so you will see what that looks like in the future. But as long as we all understand how to read a pay stub now, we can go ahead and move on to the next part. Okay. Breaking down my checks for the past year. I have broken it down into actual, I'm going to go and show the actual pay stubs, but then I've also broken it up, and we will go over this too when we get there. I owed Western money after working. I will show you how that happened. But what I basically did is you'll have the total that was getting deposited from my account, plus I'll add back in any advances I took out, so that you'll be able to see what my total take home was. Because even though I got an advance, that was still money in my pocket I was putting in my pocket at the end of the day and taking home. It just may not have been on my actual check. So I did take that into consideration, and I did add those back in to get these total take-home amounts. So we're gonna go over October of 2022 last year. These were the pay dates, and these were the check amounts for that month, and this was the total I made for that month. Now granted, I was still within my first 30 days. I was training, so I got what they called training pay. And for those of you who don't know, I do over-the-road flatbed. I'm in the flatbed division, and I do over-the-road. So your first two days of training pay for flatbed will be your load securement training, which I will show you on the first check. But when you get on a trainer's truck, you don't get paid per miles or anything like that you do. While you're in training, while you're in the trainer's truck, no matter how much you drive on your clock, as long as you drove that day and they have that in the tablet system and it's recorded that you drove, you get paid a daily rate for that day. If you don't drive while you're on a trainer's truck, you don't make any pay for that day. Even though you were training, if you don't drive, you don't make any money. So every day you're on that truck, you want to be driving if possible, unless you're doing a reset or something like that. And I think the daily rate's like $92.50 or something like that. I don't remember because it's been a while. Maybe it'll show a breakdown on here. But yes, you don't get paid per miles while you're in training. Your trainer, however, does get paid the miles you're driving. So if you got an awesome trainer, help them out. Try to get them miles, so they can earn that extra income. That's how your trainers get paid. They actually get paid for the miles you drive plus their miles. And then they get like a little incentive for sending in reports about your training throughout the process. There's questions they have to answer about that day and about your training and things that they have to send up, and they can get paid a little incentive for doing those. And those are optional. They don't have to do them, but it is extra pay in their pocket at the end of the day to be like, hey, yes, I trained her, we worked on blah blah blah, we did whatever. So anyways, enough about that. Let's get into my first check for the month of October last year. So this here is the 2 days of load securement pay, and this is what my very first check for Western Express looked like. It was broken down into 2 days. So it was 116. You know, you divide that in half. What is that? 58 bucks. So I made like 58 bucks or something like that. Forgive me, I'm not a number. Well, I'm kind of a numbers person, but math is so if you do see any mistakes in these videos, I'm sorry. I'm only human. But okay. So my very first check I got on October 7th last year, I took home $107.13. Mind you, I hadn't got on a trainer's truck yet. That was just for the 2 days of load securement training. I didn't take out any advances, so there won't be any advances reported on that. My second check, October 14th, trainee pay and trainee pay per diem. So basically what they did is they took all the days, half of them were taxable and the other half wasn't. If you look at this, you can see that trainee taxable income $185.71, and then over here the non-taxable $185.71, which equaled into $371.42. So this was after. Okay, so I don't know what happened with my camera there, but I'm back to recording. So second check, October 14th. Yes, I went over the training pay and all that. The taxes they took out, which was the $14.21. My take home for week number 2 at Western Express was $357.21. I didn't take out any advances at that point. My next check, here we've got the trainee pay, and I did take out an advance. The total here was the $557.14. After you take out the federal tax withholding. Now, I was reimbursed my travel pay for getting to Western Express because my family drove me and dropped me off, so they reimbursed us for the fuel, which was $30.63. So I did get that back. And then the advance, of course, they took that out, but I did add it back in. So my net pay, what got deposited in my account, was $501.01. And here, down here is the advance, so you can see how that works. You got the advance and then the advance fees. So they do charge you if you do take out an advance. And you also have to pay the ATM fees. So here it was the $63.95. So it was $65.45 in total that they took out. And to keep it simple, because the ATM fees vary and things like that, I just did the $60. So I added that back in, as you can see right here. I added that $60 back in, so my take home for that week was the $561.01. Now we go to the fourth one here, which was $1021.22. Trainee pay again in the per diem. They basically split it down the middle. Half of it was taxable, half of it wasn't. The $557.14. Here's what they took out for federal stuff. Orientation travel. Huh. It looks like I got paid that twice. Or I'm looking at the same check. Hold on. Oh, looking at the same check. Okay. Oopsie. So this was my fourth check. Sorry. Here we go again. $446.52 is the net on that. And I didn't take out any advances. So that completes October. my total take-home pay was $1471.87. So now we're gonna jump into my very first month of once I got on the truck myself, and that over here, this will be my first one on the truck by myself. Required pay adjustment. I really wish they would make more detailed notes on this because I can't remember what that was from. I want to say it was for bungees or something like that, but they did put that on here, and I think that's what that advance was for originally. But they for flatbed, you do get paid Tarp Pay with Western Express, and that's $25 total, period. On one load, you can't make no more than $25, period. It's $12.50 to put 2 tarps on, $12.50 to take 2 tarps off, or one, whatever the load requires. But you're not gonna make no more than $25 for a tarp job. Bridgeport's Kingsport. Here's the breakdown of that: the taxable income, the non-taxable, and the miles, and then my cents per mile that I was getting paid. Which, when I got on my own truck, I started out at 48 cents per mile. My take home, after all the, well, right here they were paying passenger insurance, and that's for if you want to name someone in your family, your spouse, your girlfriend, a friend, anyone who's over the age of 18 for Western Express, you can have on your truck. You just have to fill out a form, get them approved, and then you pay insurance on that weekly. It's $6 a week per the person you have named. So right there, $6 for that. So first week solo by myself, my take home was $239.97. I didn't take out any advances. Next check, my total take home was $641.39. Yeah, no advances on that. Detention pay, I did get paid detention pay, and they have that under the non-taxable. Tarp Pay, the different loads here, you can look at that. I'm still getting paid the 48 cents per mile, and we're gonna keep going. My next check after that, everything still looks very normal. My take home for this, and that's because I got a lot of miles at 48 cents there, my take home that week was $1,050.78. Moving on. Oh, I did have an advance, so they did take that out. Moving on here, when it says no tarp photo or no photo tarp, that's because I was still learning at that time, and I didn't know that you had to use the app or the tablet to take the tarp photos. So you will start seeing pay from that in the future, but I wasn't aware. This was the first time I had ever seen that. So my take home that week, and I believe I had home time, so that's kind of why this ended up like this, but the 57 plus I had in advance, so I did add that back in. Moving on, here again, breakdown pay. If you are broke down, say you had a tire blowout, or you're going to break down for a long while and it's something out of your control, they do have different amounts of breakdown pay that you can get. Tarp Pay, there's that. Detention Pay again, things like that. There's your total miles. And then I also did get a pay raise. I went from 48 cents to 52 cents per mile. And that is one thing that I could say about Western Express, is they do have an aggressive pay raise jump that's pretty quickly, like pretty much every 30 days for like your first 2 or 3 months, like you're getting cents added on pretty quickly. Standard stuff again, taken out. That pay was $1178.83. Moving on, I did take out that advance. We get over here, which we've already jumped to December, so let me go back here. That's October's total, November's total at 48 cents. Now we're up to 52 cents per mile. This was my total I made for December, but there was also 5 weeks in December, so it might look like an awful lot. but there was 5 checks in that month, and I was running pretty good. I was getting some pretty good loads in December. So there's the loads, there's the withholdings, 52 cents per mile, and we continue on. I did take out that advance. Here, December 16th payment of last year, all still 52 cents per mile. My take home was $934.48. And these were the different places I went, the Tarp Pays, all the miles I got paid for those, and no advances taken out. Oh man. Okay, so here, $12.23, 52 cents per mile. There's the different places, different Tarp Pays, the miles, all that, still the same. Now, the scale ticket here, I do want to talk about that really, really briefly, okay? Western Express does not have an account, nor do they really weighing your truck once you get loaded is the responsibility of the driver at Western Express. You can trust that the loaders loaded you correctly and that your weights all work out and go down the road. However, you get pulled in a weigh station because your weights are off, that's on you. I choose to, when I have the money, because I don't always have the money, but when I have the money and I know that load's kind of questionable, I will scale my load. It cost, well, back then it was $13. They've raised the price, now it's $13.50 now. In some places I've even been charged $14. But to use a CAT scale, it will save your butt in the end. Ultimately, if you weigh yourself and then you go through a weigh station and they pull you in over your weight, as long as you've got that scale ticket, you're pretty good. They don't really give you a lot of trouble about it unless something totally is off and it's unsafe, or something shifted, or something crazy has gone on. I'm sure there's some horror stories out there, but I choose to scale my loads. It's a good habit to get into. You do fork the money up at first, but Western is really good about reimbursing you for those scale tickets. And honestly, I wish more Western drivers did scale their loads. A lot of them, they trust that, or they just don't have the knowledge to know that you need to scale your loads. When I was on my trainer's truck, my trainer never scaled his loads. That was something I didn't learn until later on. I was watching a video and someone was talking about that, and that's when I inquired about getting my loads scaled from that point on. But they do reimburse you, so that is really nice that they do that. So $316.53 was my take home that week. There's the advances I took out and the fees. Now here, again, 52 cents per mile. There's $22.87 miscellaneous expense. What is it? What, like, where is the more details, more descriptions? That is something I really wish Western would do more of, is explain what this was from. But they don't. So that was my take home for December 30th. And of course in advance. And yes, I did take out advances, but hey, I didn't make a lot of money anyway, and if my family needed something or anything like that and I had the ability to do so, I did take it out. I don't take advances out as often, but hey, it's a thing that's there, and it was money I earned anyway. So here I got another 2 cents per mile, so now I'm up to 54 cents per mile. Same usual things on the loads, and advances there. And if I start going too fast for you guys, feel free to pause the screen if you really want to read these checks. But you'll see the pay date, the 13th, I'm up to 54. It's the same normal stuff as usual. And again, no advances there. Still 54 cents. Normal things there. Scale ticket. They're starting to take out for the medical and stuff now too. So that's going to be a hefty deduction they take out. Net pay is $352.29 there. Another advance that I took out. And let's see, we're at the end of January here. 54 cents again. All the stuff they're taking out, the medical, vision, the insurance, the passengers fees, things like that. Normal loads, the miles, made $460.03. So this is the end of January. So let's jump back over at this chart here. December's total, that was my total from December at the 52 cents per mile. And January. So this is the total I made for January of this past year. And that was all at 54 cents per mile. So now we're going to jump over into February. February. My first check in February. Oh, well, that was the advances from last month. Okay, so first check in February this year. I am now up to 56 cents per mile. So you see how quickly that was. I went from October, November, December, January. Now we're in February at 56 cents. And I started out at 48 cents per mile. So they do have a pretty quick pay raise once you stick with them. So now I'm up to 56 cents per miles. Here's the miles I had for that week was 405. Same things, they still take out the same. Here's the scale ticket reimbursements for the 2 loads that I did. And again, required pay adjustment. I really wish they would put more details on things like that, but they don't. And the net pay. So when you're looking at this, that earnings total, it was $263.44, but just in the deduction total, the $284.82, I ended up owing Western Express. And they kind of explain it down here. I've got the advances that I took out. So ending balance owed, deductions and arrears, advance and advance fees. After they added all this up, they took everything away and they took the advance out. I ended up owing Western this week for $59.89, which, I mean, I could complain about that, but in a way it was kind of nice that even though I didn't make enough to cover my family's medical, insurance, visions, things like that, that they still allowed it to slide, and I owed them that week for that. And oh man, so, but I did take an advance out on this one. I do have one here in a few minutes I'm going to talk about where I didn't take an advance out and I still ended up owing them money. So that was that one, and that was for my first check in February. So February ended up owing Western Express, which that one I did take an advance out on. So I mean, some of you could say, yeah, if you didn't take that advance out, you wouldn't have owed them, and that's probably true. But this next one down here I'm going to talk about that you guys can see popping up in March. We'll talk about that one. So moving on, we're going to continue down. Here we go. Still at 56 cents per mile. My take home was the 568.25. I had 1431 on miles. Same standard things, scale ticket reimbursement. And this here, even though I didn't take out any advances, it did say the beginning balance owed was the $59.89. So they did take that out up here of this total that they gave me. So, and well, 58.39, there it is. Alright, well, it says 59.89, 58.39. Oh, because they broke the fee the fee up. Okay, so that's I was getting confused for just a quick second, but anyways, okay, so they took the fee out. So that's how I got that balance there. Moving on, February 17th check still at 56 cents per mile. Everything here looks the same. The Tarp pays, the scale ticket, everything looks good there. Take home was $551.19. No advances taken out. Let's see, that was February 17th. So the next February check still at 56 cents per mile. Everything here looks still the same. Normal total miles was 1838 I drove. And after expenses and all that, I took home 711.17. So now, I did take an advance, so they did take that out. And I did add that back in over here. So is that 2/24? So February 24th. You can see where I added that back in here, and that was my total technical take-home pay. But for the month of February, my total was $2,230.61. So now we're going to move on to March, and this is where things start to get a little interesting. March 3rd, still at 56 cents per mile. Stop and pick up pay. So what that is, if you ever see that on your check, say you pick up 3 air conditioning units, and the first 2 get dropped off at location A, and then the last one gets dropped off at location B. If you have multiple stops where you're dropping things off, or multiple pickup spots where you have to pick multiple things up, they do have extra pay for that kind of thing at Western. So this check looks pretty normal. I had 828 miles that week on that, no advances, so I got 358.77. Moving on, this check here, I'm still got the 56 cents per mile, no photo tarp, so either I forgot to send it or they didn't upload it. Most of the time I just email my DM the tarp photos, because I always take them on my phone to have backups in case this happens and it's on my check and I don't get it. Scale tickets, things, all that's the same. But as you can see on the net pay amount, there's nothing here. So then we're going to go down to the advance. There's nothing here. So why on the net pay is it blank? Well, if you look at the total plus non-taxable income, I did 1 load and my total was $116.48. Well, if you look at the total of deductions, is $133.31. I ended up owing Western again for this check, even though I had worked that week and I had driven 208 miles. I still ended up owing Western at the end of the day. Now, granted, they didn't explain that on here, but we'll see that in the future. I ended up owing Western for that week, and I've got that on here. For this week, ended up owing Western. Now, I was starting to kind of get a little frustrated with my pay at this point, because I was like, I'm not making any miles, I'm not getting any good loads. So I got the bright idea, hey, I want to start training for you guys. So I inquired on how to do that, and I became a trainer. So we move on to March 17th of this year. I didn't notice this at the time. I thought I was still being paid the 56 cents per mile. But no, they dropped it down to 52 cents per mile, which was what I was told was the new trainer's pay. I didn't notice it at the time, but this was ultimately the reason I stopped training for Western Express. And I'll give you a little quick, we'll talk about that in a minute. But right here, it's got the driver's code of the driver that I was training at that time, and this was the load that we had from that location to Nashville, the total miles was 424 miles. That was my pay for that. The scale ticket there and that. I did get $30 for training, but as far as miles goes, I didn't really make any extra miles as far as training goes. But my pay was $88.84. That was my first week training, and I was like, what? I thought I was supposed to make a lot of money training, but I really hadn't at this point. I didn't take out any advances. So my next week training, still at 52 cents per mile, which I think I did notice it on this check. And so I got the Tarp Pay. The $12.50 there is usually because if you trade a load off with somebody and they've already tarped it and all you got to do is take it off, or vice versa, that's why you see the $12.50 on the Tarp Pay instead of the $25, is because half the job was already done for you. No tarp photos. Again, I probably didn't send them in. That could have been an extra $25. But I was still kind of new in training, and I was like trying to keep up with everything. Tarp photo is one of the easiest things to forget. I wasn't staying on top of getting those tarp photos in. But here, the scale tickets, I was real big on scaling my loads and insurance. So second week of training someone, I only took home $181.26, which there are some advances in here, and as you can see here, it took that off because of the reimbursements and the advances, and you'll see how that kind of, I took out a lot of advances that week, and some of it was equipment wise, some of it wasn't, which you'll see on the next check when they actually reimburse me. So that was that check. Let's see, that was $324. So March 24th, my take home was $541.26. So nice. Training. Supposed to be training pay. Supposed to be making a lot of money. At least that's what they tell you at first. So here, another interesting long check that we look at. Still 52 cents per mile training. Here's where they fixed the training pay with that particular trainee. So I made $150. I didn't really make any extra miles per se. I got 2167. Again, no tarp photos. The no photo stopped. From my understanding, that was like the in between stops, you had to take photos of where you'd fix the tarp back or something like that. No one's really been able to give me a concrete answer on that. But again, stop, pickup, pay, things like that. It breaks all this down, and it's got the totals. Again, a scale ticket, reimbursement, passenger insurance, all of that. So net was that. I did have some advances down here. So my total take-home pay for the third week was $1,098.44, and that's with the advances added back in. So my total for the March of 2023 was $2,087.31. So we're gonna continue moving on. 52 cents, 52 cents, 52 cents, but this one here, 58 cents. This is because I had quit training. I got fed up with training. And then this miscellaneous expense, that's where they were paying me back for some equipment that I got in advance for, things like that. Tarp Pay started coming back. So my total take home after adding the advances back in, and this one's for April 7th. So April 7th would be $810.37. the next week, next week, still kind of looking the same. The 52 cents per mile, and this was where I was training. They were working on fixing my pay, and I believe in this one that I showed you, the one with the 58 cents, that was something they had owed me for before I started training. It just wasn't included on the previous check. But I did end up, I ended up quitting training. But here, that's a long story about my first trainee. But they ended up ultimately paying me for training that trainee. There's a whole story behind that I'm not going to get into in this pay video. But again, miscellaneous expenses, that's for equipment I had to purchase, whether it was like lumber, bungees, things like that. So that's what those advances were for, and things like that. So if you see that, they ended up reimbursing that back to me. So my total was $824.13. My next check here, this was the next trainee I had. And I started getting, I think it was like $10 a day or $5 a day or something every day of trainees on your truck for the reports that you send in. But 52 cents per mile, I got 3,036 miles that week, and my take home was pretty good at $1,479.69. If only every week I was training was like that, I would still be training as of right now. However, that wasn't really the case. But no advances. Check looked pretty good. And that was for the April 21st. Right here. Now for April 28th, where you see right here where it says don't know. I did not realize it. Because this is not my only source of income. Western Express is not my only source. I have other income from a previous job. But I didn't notice. My DM didn't notice. But where I get my other check on the 1st of the month, every month, I didn't notice I didn't get an April 28th check. So when I discovered this, I emailed my DM, and he's trying to research it to see what happened. But as of right now, we have no idea what happened to that check. If I even got a check, which I'm sure I did because I was working. Don't know what happened. That check's up in the air. So moving on though to my first check in May. I had since quit training because it just wasn't worth it for me at the time at 58 cents per mile. So they jumped me back up to what I was supposed to be at this point. I got 872 miles for the pay. It was 505.76 after deductions and everything they took out, including the advance. I got deposited a whopping $3.10 in my account. But I did have an advance, so I did add that back in over here in May. And kind of going back, that was April's total, $3,114.19. But for my first check in May, if you include that advance, it was $203.10. And moving on to the next checks, and like I said, feel free to pause the screen if you want to look at any of these. But nothing out of the ordinary. I gotta get better at taking my Tarp photos. But still 58 cents per mile. The deductions they took out, and I got paid $493.46. No advances taken out. Next May check, 58 cents per mile, $427.11. And the advance I took out there. And May 26th check, 58 cents per mile. I had the one load. It was 536 miles. I got, my take home was $305.19 with no advances taken out. Now, we go from May 26th to July 21st, 2023. So let me show you guys on here real quick. This was my total I made for the month of May, which was $1548.86. And things were getting really frustrating at that point because it just, I tried training, that was a disaster. I went back solo, even more of a disaster because now I wasn't getting the miles I was used to getting. So I took some time off. So I didn't make any money in June. And I was off for a total of 6 weeks. So my first check, once I came back and I got reinstated, July 21st, my first check I made $43.66, which I will show you that check here. They brought me back at 58 cents per mile. I drove 324 miles. I earned $187.92, but after they took out deductions, my take home was $43.66. So, no advances taken out. My next check, I'm still at 58 cents per miles. I got a lot of loads on there. It looks like what, 4 loads I did, 1,200 miles total. After they took out all the deductions, I brought home $299.02. I did take out advances because, you know, keep in mind I hadn't worked for 6 weeks, so money was awfully tight. But that was my second check back. So then we're going to August. So my total for July was $642.68. So we're gonna get into August. August here, 58 cents per miles. Total miles I got was 1783. Not bad. Take home after all the benefits and advances and everything was $720.39. Plus you add the 200 back in. That brought me to $920.39. And same thing. All these checks, still pretty much the same kind of things. You can pause the screen if you want to read it in more detail. Same thing, 58 cents per miles. The Tarp multi-stop, they added a little extra on for that because I had to untarp and tarp. The same thing. Here's what I ended up taking home with the advances. And then we get into the last week of August, 58 cents, required pay adjustment. Again, I really wish Western would put in more details what these things were, and why they adjusted the pay. Sometimes you just never know. But my take home after driving 501 miles was $127.14 here, with that advance, which I did add those back in for August. So you can see all the advances I took out and added back in. Now for the August 25th, I had a weird number. So, okay, that's what that was. They had taken, you see the 7630, I ultimately figured out was due to some bungees I had to buy, or lumber or something. And then so I did the math, and that ultimately ended up being, I kept the change from it, so it was $23.70 I ended up keeping. So my total was the $150.84 take home pay for that week in August. Moving on, September 1st, 58 cents per mile. The miles I had was 1888. Here's the expenses, this miscellaneous expense again that they did, the advance and the fees. So the September 1st, after I got reimbursed for the stuff I got, $959.31 was for my first week of September. So moving on. And like I said, again, feel free to pause the screen if you want to read these in more details. But 58 cents per mile, got 1545 miles there. Stop pickup pay there. Must not have been a tarp load. And right there, 584.36. Then of course I had the advances back in. You'll see that in a moment. September 15th, still 58 cents per mile, total miles, which Western's really famous for doing this, especially to solo drivers. You don't really get a lot of high mileage loads. You get a bunch of these little short, like look, 104 miles, 371 miles, 254 miles. The one I had with the most miles was right here, the 822. But if you go back and you look at my checks, unless I was training, I really didn't see like a lot of miles on a load. It's a bunch of little short loads. And the advances for that one, which I do add back in, you'll see. September 22nd, 58 cents. Total miles was 867. After all the fees and medical and stuff, it was 202.59 there. Plus, I'll add back in the advances if there wasn't some equipment getting reimbursed back in with. And let's see, that was September 22nd. So, right here, these are all the loads and the pays that I've had. So, for the month of September, which the 29th, it has happened as of this video, but I'm not going to go ahead and include it into this, but we'll just stop it right here. Was 28.33.61 so far for the month of September. So when you look at all the total monthly values, they range so much from just a little bit of money in a month when I worked a full month to a lot of money in a month when I wasn't even training, but there was 5 weeks in that month I just had really good loads. And you know, June, I don't really count that because I was off, and the 2 weeks in July I was off. Now you could plug any one of those paychecks from any 6 weeks of those and plug them in if you want a more accurate number. But the least amount of money I made in this past year, well, what I made in this past year was $26,482.64. Now, some would say that's really crappy, and some would say that's awesome. It really just depends on your view of things. If this was my only source of income, I would not be doing this. Because the time away from my family for the pay that you get, not worth it in my eyes. But this is a stepping stone to an ultimate goal of mine, so I'm able to make it work. And I love it. My family loves it. You know, that's what I made. But yes, I had that 1 week where I ended up owing Western Express, even after working. This week, you know, you could argue whether it's because I took the advance out or not. But this one here, when I took no advance out and I still ended up owing Western, that was crazy, you guys. Just crazy. But feel free to pause this video. We just went through a whole year on checks, but hopefully you guys can see now. That's why I don't like to answer just like one specific question on, well, how do you get paid? How much do you get paid? It varies on a lot of different reasons, different aspects. So there you go. I've aired out all my checks, and that's what it looks like so far. So I hope that this video has answered all your questions about pay at Western Express as far as being an over-the-road flatbed driver goes. If not, please ask your questions down in the comments below. I love answering and responding to people's comments. Give me a thumbs up if you like this kind of content and want to see more like it. And just let me know what you guys think. I love y'all. And until next time, bye.